This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock, joined by John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Good to see you, sir.
Good to be seen, as always.
This past weekend,
Yes.
the nation went to the moon and back. So it was the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. How old were you when the astronauts landed on the moon? Do you remember that event pretty vividly?
I was 15, if you must know, and I remember it pretty well.
Yeah.
15 years old.
What do you remember thinking?
Well, I'll just tell you. That was I was still at home under the fundamentalist religion influences of my family. So we went to East Side Church of Christ services whenever they were held, including Sunday night. So from 6 to 7 we were downtown at church, but we got home 7:30, 7:45, and I remember turning on the television and watching it. Two things, and one I probably shouldn't say, but I was so unsophisticated in science and still somewhat under the sort of superstitious fundamentalism that something about it was unsettling. You know, I was thinking, should we really be up there? And I didn't want to think that. I sort of knew better, but I thought, this is weird. But then what I really remember, even though I was not quite sophisticated scientifically, I was already, if I might say, modestly, pretty good with words. So Neil Armstrong comes down and says, that's one small step for man, one giant step for man,
One giant
leap for mankind.
Yeah.
And I said to my folks, to the family, he said that wrong. Because man and mankind are the same thing. I bet what they told him to say, that's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. I believe that's what he was supposed to say.
You had your editor's cap on at age 15.
I remember thinking, I guess astronauts don't have to be good with words because this, and they didn't. That was
They don't.
apparently not part
You
of
do
it.
have to be good with physics.
But what a moment, and I thought he blew the quote, but it's okay. But it was remarkable, the grainy pictures. I mean, now we would, in the high def era, you look back at the re-airing of the footage at that time, you're saying, I can't see anything, which led, the graininess and uncertainty of some of the photographs led to these conspiracy theories that had never really happened. What a moment. What a moment.
Yep.
And I'm glad you weren't born yet, were you?
I was. Yeah, I was. I was actually almost 4 years old, and I actually just have like one of those snapshots in my mind. I was at my grandparents' house, my maternal grandparents, and I remember them watching it, and I went to the window to look at the moon, which is what you would probably think a 4-year-old would do. Well, could I see them up there? I was looking for them up there on the moon, walking around.
In your frame of reference, it's this little spot right up there in the sky, and
right.
those guys are up there, so let's go see them.
That's
Didn't
my memory
quite work
of it
that way,
there,
but
so.
it was a great thing. But yeah, I was editing that night. I said, he blew it. That's not what, man and mankind are the same thing. It's one small step for, amen. I wish we could have a do-over on that.
I don't think so.
I may be the only one worried about that, though. Go ahead.
Well, now there's a whole audience of people that are worried about it because you brought it to their attention.
I'm happy to have done so.
The comment section will be interesting this week because of that. You had a column on a Sunday that ranked the governors of Arkansas during your lifetime. Speaking of your lifetime here. And
I call that the modern era. Generously, very generously.
Very generously.
Right.
You put Governor Rockefeller at the top of the list. Why?
He had more to do with turning this state around than anyone in history. He didn't have so much to do with it substantively, but in terms of spiritually or figuratively, he was sort of transitional, and then bumpers came after, thanks only to Rockefeller's being transitional, to do the real transforming. And I did it all in the context of two things that the state needed during my lifetime, to modernize its economy and to moderate its politics. We had reactionary politics, we had racist politics. Our economy historically lagging, still lags, but really lagged in those days. And Rockefeller did more to change the tone, tenor, and vision of the state than anyone. If he hadn't moved here and had his transitional governance, we might not have changed in the way we did and progressed as much as we did. So that was the basis for that ranking.
Did you get any of the other rankings wrong now that you hung it out there? Because
No.
you've had some feedback.
Well,
off
sure,
of it,
you always
so.
get, let me tell you, Roby, being objective and saying, even though I disagree with a couple of these Republicans, their governorship served the causes of moderation and modernization. Sometimes the left can be about as hateful as the right. So I've heard some of that, but I'm mostly amused by it, frankly, because as Asa Hutchinson, for example, I rank him as high as 4th and thought about him for 3rd. I mean,
He's not done being governor
I know,
yet.
I know. He could still got a I think he's got a chance to drop, but not to rise so much.
You don't think?
Well,
Okay.
I mean, bumpers, and I mean, you have to make a significant change, transformation of the state to unseat those. But I give him, Hutchinson, incredible credit as a Republican with embracing the element of Obamacare that Medicaid expansion was and finding a way to get it passed. I don't give him a pass on something I criticize him about very harshly, which is the work requirement, but it's been stayed by a federal judge, and he did what he had to do politically, and sometimes I have a lot of forbearance on that sort of thing.
Yep.
So there's that. And also, I know, because I've had calls. I mean, I've been a little bit on the inside. We've got to stop so-and-so from a bathroom bill. We can't have that. And so he has moderated in that respect to serve the modernizing of the economy. His computer coding, some of the people say that's 5 or 10 years behind, but at least it's an effort to address the digital age. So I got him ranked 4th of the 10.
You had 10, but you left out one.
Bob Riley.
I know. Where does he rank?
Well,
how long was he in office? 9 days
yeah,
or something?
I just decided not to.
A great war hero, though.
A great war hero.
If you read his biography
I know.
about what he did in World War II, phenomenal.
As a governor, Roby,
Yeah.
he was sort of like the lieutenant governors who get to be governor for a few days. I mean, lieutenant governors have been actually served as governor as long as Bob Riley served as actual governor. So I chose, there's no way to rate, you're kidding, I think. Did I?
Yeah.
But maybe I should have mentioned, I should have had a footnote about why he wasn't
That's why
ranked.
you get to write another column at some point in time.
Yeah. All right.
Let's talk about the big controversy at the national level for the past week. President Donald Trump, a week ago, we were talking about comments that he made over the weekend about 4 congresswomen, Democratic congresswomen. He backtracked, then he backtracked on his backtrack, then there was the rally. In essence, Trump has tripled down, perhaps quadrupled down on this whole controversy. Why?
He believes that it serves his purposes, and everything is about serving his purposes. He believes it serves his purposes to tie the Democrats to the rhetoric and the incendiary or polarizing positions of these extreme semi-socialist women. I've been criticized again for being hesitant to call it racism because I think it's something sort of transcendent of that. I just think I think it's so self-serving that if he could disparage and say send white people back and it'd help him, I think he'd say that. Nonetheless, I think I've been cutting it too fine. The fact is, to exploit them and to say send them back, yeah, I've been cutting that too fine. That's easily racist, racial exploitation, and reminiscent of it, and clearly an example of it. So, I stand willing to say that. But his purpose is, and he's said to be in the White House, pleased the way this is going. Mm-hmm. That we now, rather than talking about anything else, most every time they talk about whether that the president or Trump has said things that are inappropriate, most fair-minded reporting will then go on to say, on the other hand, these women have said this, 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 and this. He thinks that's a dialogue. He thinks that's a message that alienates people from the Democratic Party and gives him a chance for the center. It may be a miscalculation. It may be that those people in the center are more aghast at the send her back frightful racist mob type behavior that he was basking in, even though he said he wasn't. So, but why is he doing it? He's doing it as a political calculation.
To divide and conquer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, divide and conquer, and also to say, well, yeah, divide and conquer, but to make the Democratic Party about its left-wing extreme. That's what he's trying to do.
So we could have a change in the narrative this week.
Right.
Special Prosecutor Robert Mueller is scheduled to testify before Congress. What are your expectations of what will happen at that hearing?
Great piece in the New York Times Sunday said that Mueller had, in his career, has testified 88 times to Congress. And his friends are quoted as saying that he became just despairing of the whole exercise, the partisanship, the dread, and that he is a man of few words. And there was a Democratic congressman from Vermont who says, we fully expect monosyllabic responses from this guy. Mueller, I believe, signaled, or more than signaled, he said, when he came out and made his brief statement, I don't need to testify, my report is my testimony. I think the whole exercise tomorrow will be Democrats trying to get him to go beyond my report is my testimony, and his trying to say, I did my job. You have your job, but you have to make your own determinations, and the people need to make, here is my report. And I think that's going to be the byplay. The Republicans, I think, here's the wild card to me, the Republicans are talking about trying to attack him and say that his whole prosecutorial staff, investigative staff, was made up with biased liberal Democrat Hillary supporters. I think he knows better than that. I think he's a pro who assembled pros, and I think that could cause him to signal. The only chance that he might lose his cool and get off message and say something that would create incendiary headlines, I think, would be that. But finally, this is all about a report and getting it said on television. I have read that, I don't know who would do this, who has any idea, but somebody said 3% of the people have read the Mueller report. Who counted them? I don't know. I didn't do it, and I can't say that, but I do suspect that very few people have. So this is a chance to be on live television and say what's in the report. And I think the Democrats are making, if he'll just enumerate the things he said in the report about examples of obstruction of justice that I did not charge but could not exonerate him, that there'll be benefit in that. So it's a major political moment. I think it'll be a wash. I think he will keep his cool and evade most questions, but it's the chance that he might not that will make it interesting.
That could be a small step for a man and a giant leap for democracy. How about that?
Well, it's well put. That's well put, and I appreciate you saying it properly.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that you paid no attention to anything I was saying, so that because you were spending all your time trying to formulate that little quip.
It's just not true.
Well, all right.
It's just spontaneous. He is John Brummett of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. It is always good to be with you.
Thank you.
That's all for today's program. We'll see you next time.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.